Vice President Kamala Harris left today for Germany. Well, that's not a very romantic spot for Valentine's Day. All their candy hearts just say, we enter the world alone, we leave the world alone.
That's a German philosophical reference there. 99, well, let's face it, 100% of the audience didn't get it there, just didn't get it. It's not easy being a comedian. It's hard out there for a comedian. You know, it's like it's hard out there for a pimp. That's a Democrat thing. Oh, speaking of which, Democrats came out on Capitol Hill yesterday. Very important hip-hop message for America. Hip-hop, very, very important art form. And there's a lot of money, and the Democrats want the money. It's all about the shakedown. The Democrat racists in Congress, you know. Speaking of the Democrat racists in Congress, you see Rashida Tlaib yesterday. She voted present on a piece of legislation that simply condemned the use of rape as a weapon of war. She voted present. She's a little wishy-washy on this, not entirely clear where she stands, but she knows she hates the Jews, and she made that clear. She's Rashida Tlaib. She's a jihadi, a Democrat member of Congress, and her congressional district has the Democrats quaking in their moccasins because they could lose the whole state of Michigan because of the jihad lobby. And the Democrats, they've got the jihad vote locked up in the United States. Crazy stuff, these Democrats. They gave me much too much material once again today. In Kansas City, 3 young Democrats shot, how many? 22 people, murdering one woman who was a well-known local disc jockey and radio personality and a mother of 2 and a super fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. And she was murdered at the Victory Parade in beautiful Kansas City, Missouri yesterday. 21 additional people shot, including at least 9 children, a whole bunch of people in critical condition. 3 young men arrested for this mass shooting. The video would suggest 3 young African-American men that had guns and opened fire at the Victory Parade for the Kansas City Chiefs. And they're saying a motive is unclear. I guess they don't have Palestine written on the stocks of their guns. I believe they used handguns. Remarkable stuff. And 2 men in the crowd, including one man, Paul Contreras, and I have a bit of audio from Paul Contreras today, attacked at least one of the gunmen, tackled him, held him until the police arrived. I hope they didn't kneel on him or anything because that could be a big problem. Remarkable stuff. But Lisa Lopez, local disc jockey, mother of 2, murdered by these psychos. And, you know, Kansas City, Missouri, they matched their all-time record high for homicides in 2023. And the news media doesn't pay any attention to this because it's Joe Biden. You know, it's Joe and the Democrats and the Democrat policies of anti-police and defund the police and pro-crime prosecutors that let the criminals back on the street and don't give anybody any jail time unless they're praying at an abortion clinic or something. Then you could face more than a decade in a penitentiary. But pay no attention to that. It's quite remarkable. Lots of remarkable stuff. And the crime wave, and they keep telling us, I know crime is down. Crime is real good. It's not as bad as it used to be. It is completely absurd. The level of lie, the giant lies. So we've got the massacre, the mass shooting in Kansas City at the Kansas City Chiefs Victory Parade. The people at MSNBC were thrilled when they learned that Taylor Swift was not there because for them it's all a celebrity circle fest in a hot tub, and that's all it's about. So I want to update you on that, an extraordinary turn of events, a terrible turn of events, and you might think that somebody in politics or in the news media would notice that we've got a terrible crime crisis in the United States of America. And I was listening to WMAL and Mornings on the Mall and Larry O'Connor and Mercedes Schlapp this morning on the radio and listening to all the crime reports it turns out these gangs, Joe Biden's South American gangs and Central American gangs and Mexican cartels are flooding into the United States. And Mercedes Schlapp talking about she was down at the border in Arizona about a week ago. And there are small towns in Arizona close to the border that have just been taken over by the cartels. And the police can't do anything. They're outgunned. They're outnumbered. This is Joe Biden and the fundamental transformation of America as threatened or promised by Barack Obama, who told us all that we better learn to speak Spanish because the Democrat Party has a plan for the United States. And it's kind of like the plan that Swedes have for baby harp seals in the spring. They're planning on clubbing us to death on an ice shelf here and skinning us because that's your Democrat Party. They're not on our side. But the gangs, these South American gangs, we know they're running roughshod over New York City and clubbing women and dragging them in their stolen mopeds and scooters and stealing phones and purses and hacking into the phones and emptying bank accounts and attacking the police violently and then being released without bail by the Democrats because they love crime and they hate the police because they're the left. They're not liberals. So we know that's happening. But Larry O'Connor played audio this morning from a news report in Detroit, Michigan, where Larry's from and he grew up. And there are South American gangs in suburbs of Detroit, beautiful tree-lined suburbs of Detroit. No kidding, Bloomfield Hills and Birmingham, Michigan, very luxurious suburbs of Detroit. And there are South American gangs in the woods targeting multi-million-dollar homes and sacking them when people aren't home, ideally. They sit out in the woods, wait until it looks like the houses are empty, and then they're sacking the homes in suburban Detroit in Michigan because of Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas and Democrats. And that's amazing. And Mercedes Schlapp said that her sister living in Miami had her home invaded while she was home. And it turned out it was a Colombian gang in Miami. South American gangs in Michigan. More Latin American gangs in Pennsylvania. And, of course, New York. And it's all because of Joe Biden. Every robbery, every attack, every assault, every murder is thanks to Joe Biden. But he will not be held to account because our news media is a gang of corrupt bootlicks that aren't journalists at all. They're Democrats. And that is a truly appalling reality, but it's a reality nonetheless. Just extraordinary. Also, did you see there is an outbreak of the bubonic plague out west? Outbreak of the bubonic plague. They're bringing back the Middle Ages. The Democrats are. They're quite amazing. Also, big story yesterday because Congressman Republican Mike Turner sounded the alarm, put out a very cryptic statement yesterday, and then being Washington, things started leaking from anonymous sources, which is how everything works in Washington. Everybody's anonymous, and it's better that way for a variety of reasons. And then it turned out it leaks. Well, what Mike Turner's national security threat that he's talking about, that is Russia. First leak was, well, it has to do with Russia. Then second leak was, well, it has to do with space. Then third leak has to do with nuclear weapons. So now we're talking about Vlad the Impaler Putin, who's a communist because communists terrorize and murder better than anybody. Really, that's what they're good at. And the Democrat Party here in the United States, they're not really Americans anymore, are they? No, they're not. But it turns out the story is, and we've got the anemic Jake Sullivan going up to Capitol Hill today. He's our national security advisor. He wouldn't intimidate like the leaders of Burkina Faso, much less China or Russia, but never mind that. And he's going to go up to Capitol Hill and brief people today on something that they already know about, but they're trying to keep it a secret, and that's Putin the commie. And something having to do with nuclear weapons or nuclear something in space, out in space, you know. I've been all morning, I've been singing Mel Brooks. I've been singing one of Mel Brooks' songs. We're Jews out in space. We're flying around protecting the Hebrew race. And I know that's not Putin and Russians, but it's the song that occurred to me this morning. So I was singing in the shower and over breakfast. I sing a lot, though. And so we've got that. And Mike Turner sounded the alarm bell, and it turns out Putin. And then it gets complicated because, you know, what's the point of putting nuclear weapons in space? There are a lot of other methods for delivering nuclear weapons that might make more sense. But we could be talking about anti-satellite weapons and or electromagnetic pulse weapons, EMP weapons, that could short out Well, the entire electrical grid in the United States, for example, from space, or the entire GPS system worldwide, for example, things like that. You got to keep your eye on commies, keep your eyes peeled because, they destroy everything. That's what they do. So Russian nukes in space, and, there's a treaty from 1967 that would prohibit that. He's a commie. They don't care. Commies don't care. That's the thing. Also, we've got an update on the Robert Hur report about Joe Biden's brain being broke. Joe Biden's brain, she's a no good. That brain of his, she's a broke. And Joe Biden was going around yelling at everybody, "How dare you ask me about my son, Beau?" Because it came out that he didn't know when he became vice president. He didn't know when he stopped being vice president. That's not a good sign. And then he said, the report said that he didn't know within several years when his son, Beau, died. And Biden is screaming and pounding the table and spitting mad, squinting like Clint Eastwood in Hang 'em High, like he's real angry. "How dare they ask me about when my son Beau died?" Well, we have an update on that. And Joe Biden was lying or brain dead again because they didn't ask him about his son Beau. He volunteered, brought up kind of out of nowhere his son Beau, and still got the year wrong by many years. And Joe Biden is not up to the task of being president, and he has to step down. He has to step aside because he's a danger to Western civilization and democracy. And if Republicans knew how to do anything, and they know how to do this much. I'm holding my right index finger less than an inch over my right thumb. They know how to do this much. And the Speaker of the House yesterday, Mike Johnson, he had a couple of good moments, and I'll share those with you too. But if they know how to do anything, they would be eviscerating Joe Biden on a daily basis, as the Democrats would be eviscerating any Republican president that had been revealed to be a moron who doesn't know what year it is. I've been saying this for how long, Michael, that he doesn't know what year it is. He doesn't know what month we're in. He doesn't know what time zone he's in. He doesn't know. He's just looking forward to some more oatmeal and another episode of Hazel, and then he'll be happy because his brain is no good. But Joe Biden, it turns out that Robert Hur and the investigators, while interviewing him, did not bring up his son Beau. He brought up his son Beau, and then he angrily lashed out in public that they brought up his son Beau when they didn't. He needs to go. His brain doesn't work, and that's bad for civilization. See, China loves it. Putin loves it. If I lived in Taiwan, I'd be a bit nervous, I've got to say, because time to make your move with Joe Biden in the White House. He's a bag of hammers, that boy. I'm telling you. Also, an amazing story. Vladimir Putin, in an interview, he said that he prefers Biden over Trump. He prefers Biden. That's more Russian collusion, obviously. There's a conspiracy out here in the open between Biden and Putin. That's not true, of course, but this is the kind of BS that they peddle every single day. But it's true that Putin says he prefers Biden over Trump because he says Biden is more predictable. Yeah, it's predictable that he's going to fall down another flight of stairs real soon, that he's going to demonstrate his senility and his lack of ability. That's fairly predictable, and that he's got a bunch of weak sisters, anemic, emasculated, pseudo-men around him that don't know how to do anything. Like our Antony Blinken, our Secretary of State, and Jake Sullivan, our National Security Advisor. Honestly, these people, Fredonia would wage war against the United States at this point. That's a fictional country from a Marx Brothers movie. Just amazing stuff. And President Trump weighed in, of course. Trump calls Putin comments that he prefers Biden over Trump a great compliment. A great compliment. Might want to rework that with the communications staff, but we'll take a look at that too. And remarkable stuff from there. Oh, Humma Weiner. Humma Weiner is back in the news. Remember Anthony Weiner, the child sex predator / Democrat administration official, Anthony Weiner. And it was Hillary Clinton that hooked up, if you will, Humma Weiner and Anthony Weiner. Well, now Humma Weiner's got a new date. You'll never guess who it is. It's a Circle Fest in a hot tub, I can tell you that much. We got that going. And the Washington Post is now blaming Donald Trump for the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. Turns out it's all Trump's fault. You know why? Peace deals in the Middle East really infuriated the terrorists. And since Trump brought several peace deals, that hastened the Hamas attack on Israel, which makes a lot of sense. And again, Rashida Tlaib is pro-rape and pro-murder and pro-torture and pro-kidnapping. Amazing stuff. Christopher Wray, our crooked FBI director, showed up in Israel unexpectedly. Oh, we got a lot of stuff for you today. We're at 888-630-9625. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit chrisplantcruise.com. We are back, and as I offered up, lots to talk about today. President Trump in New York in court because Stormy Daniels, because the Democrats are leftists and they persecute their political enemies and try to jail them, just like communists and leftists all over the world. And I'll keep you posted on that as well. Right now, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Paul calling from Woodbridge, Virginia. Paolo, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, buddy. How you doing? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir. I can.
All right. Good. Hey, just a quick note. Thanks again for doing your show, man. I think you really help keep a lot of us educated. You know, one thing I think we all need to start doing, though, is not referring to Biden as much, because we know he's completely irrelevant. I mean, the guy can't put two, sentences together, much less two coherent thoughts. I think it's more the Democrats, the Obama regime. They're the ones running all this. And what they're going to say is they're going to kick old Biden to the curb, and they're going to go, look what we did. We fixed it. We got rid of the problem. The problem was Biden. So look what we're doing for you. We're taking care of you. We got rid of the problem. I think we need to divorce Biden from everything because he's completely irrelevant. And we can't lose the ability to pin this all on the Democrats after they kick Biden to the curb. Just curious to these thoughts on that.
A very interesting thought. And as you may know, I've been saying for many months now that the Democrats will dump Biden because he's a liability. And you're right, he's a sock puppet. And you're right that the Obama machine runs the Democrat Party and is running the Biden White House. Played the audio, I think, yesterday or day before of Obama saying that he wants to be president on the phone, where he can just phone it in from his multi-million-dollar oceanfront estates, and I think he's doing that. And I blame the Democrats for everything all the time, writ large, and I agree with you. Now, if only the Republicans on Capitol Hill knew how to message that, but I believe you are correct, Paul. Now, the crime wave across the country is plain for everyone to see, and Joe Biden, with all of his South American, Central American gangs and the Mexican cartels taking over towns in Arizona, terrorizing people in New York and Detroit, in Miami. Your Democrat Party is not on the side of civilization. They're not liberals. Don't kid yourself. And Paul, and I'm sorry I didn't have more time for you, Paul, because Paul was making very strong points, very serious and intelligent points having to do with the fact that Joe Biden really isn't in charge. And the Democratic Party, Paul was saying, has a scheme, has a plot like commies. Commies always have a 100-year plan, They never take a beep without a plan, just like in Hunt for Red October. But the Democrats will get rid of Joe Biden, as I have been saying quite clearly and loudly since at least July of last year. And now it's really the Hur report and more embarrassment for Biden, which doesn't matter because he doesn't realize he's supposed to be embarrassed. And the Washington Post and the New York Times also don't realize that he's supposed to be embarrassed because they're not journalists, they're bootlicks for the Democrat Party. And that means that our republic cannot function properly because we have a free press, but it's not a free and fair press. and that's a big problem. But Paul was saying they're going to kick Biden to the curb, and they're going to say, see, dust off their hands. We've dealt with the problem. Now there's no more problem. Biden is gone. You guys said Biden is mentally impaired. Now Biden is gone. See, we're good to go. On to the next big lie and the next disaster and the next destructo phase for the United States of America. And Paul is right. And if on Capitol Hill, I always use the word Democrats when I talk about the crime wave and the open border and it is on Biden because he's amazingly the president of the United States. But the Democrats will kick Biden to the curb because it's what serves their greedy, power-crazed political interests right now, and that's all they care about, of course. And Barack Obama is the corrupt, mentored by a communist named Frank Marshall Davis. He's the corrupt leftist, the Saul Alinsky guy who was supposed to be teaching law but was really diagramming Saul Alinsky on the chalkboard. You may remember those photos from when he first ran for president, and the news media swept it under the rug because they're not a legitimate news media. And I was just taking notes on what Paul said after we stopped talking. I said, Paul's absolutely right. They'll get rid of Biden, and then they'll say, see, nothing to see here. Now we've hit the refresh button, and everything's good. Now we can get back to destroying the world. That's what they do. And it will be a lie, of course, that the problem is solved because Biden is gone. The problem isn't Biden. Biden is just a sock puppet who is a symbol of, a manifestation of the problem. But the Democrats will reframe themselves, and they'll be fresh again. And they get to wipe their slate clean all the time. They're the party of the KKK and the Confederate States of America and of lynching and of standing in schoolhouse doors. And they get to wipe their slate clean all the time. They're the party of rioting and looting and burning and attacking courthouses and of insurrection. And then January 6th comes along, and they turn it into a TV show, and they brought in the president of ABC News to turn their phony baloney show trial, Joseph Stalin-style hearing into a polished television presentation because it's all about the propaganda. They own the propaganda machine, and they use it to great effect because they have all their TV producers. And, they even got Travis Kelce is now a movie producer. That's amazing. He's getting green energy money to make a $10 million movie as though he knows anything about anything. But probably can't put a DVD into a DVD player and make it work. But never mind that. So Paul is right. And if the Republicans were any good at framing anything, and they're not, then, they'd be listening to Paul. They would say Paul on the Chris Plant show was right today when he said the Democrats will gas Joe Biden, and it will be a half-day story, and they'll be applauding. The news media will be applauding, and late-night TV and Saturday Night Live will all be applauding the Democrats. And, isn't Joe Biden, what a great public servant. Well, hasn't he been great? And never mind the gangs dragging your daughter down the street with a stolen scooter. Never mind that. But then they will just hit the refresh button. The media will pretend that it's a new day, and the Republicans won't know what to do about it. The Republicans on Capitol Hill and at the RNC and so on, because they're just terrible at this. They should really listen to my show and steal everything that I tell them. They'd be a lot better off. Amazing stuff. And the crime waves, the madness. How many people were murdered in Washington, D.C. yesterday? We had a 13-hour police standoff. A Democrat shot 3 police officers. See, Paul, how I frame everything as Democrats, because I do. A Democrat who had, how many? He had like 20-something dogs in his house, and they showed up to serve a warrant for animal cruelty, and he opened fire and wounded 3 police officers. And then he held out, and it's kind of funny, yesterday when this started, I said, you know what? I don't think this guy is going to die. I think this guy is going to, I said, I don't think he's going to commit suicide. I don't think he's going to do suicide by police. I think he's going to give up. I said that it was inside of the first 2 hours. It went 13 hours, and he finally gave up. How did I know that? Instinct, gut, and I've been paying attention for a long time. But never mind that. So At the same time in Washington yesterday, the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department investigating a homicide in Northeast D.C. The police investigate 2 unrelated homicides in Northwest Washington, D.C. And then you get the news media like Vox, left-wing Vox. And this story is from 2 weeks ago. Violent crime fell across the U.S. in 2023. Why did it rise in Washington, D.C.? Well, I don't actually believe that it fell across the country. I think that they're not telling the truth. Carjackings, homicides, and robberies are stealing a sense of security across Washington, D.C., and that's your Democrat Party. I saw one report that said that there were actually 5 homicides in Washington, D.C. yesterday. I haven't been able to pull that up or find that just yet, but I'm still looking for it. And, the local news media, they just kind of, is that a big deal? That's not a big deal. Now let's go to Democrats shooting up the victory parade in Kansas City for the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. I saw this initial reports. I was at Newsmax when the initial reports started coming in, and they said it was outside or in front of Union Station in Kansas City. And I lived in Kansas City for all of 6 months, and a long time ago. What was that? 1987, I think it was. And there was a famous old shootout at the Union Station in Kansas City in the 1930s, and I think it was Pretty Boy Floyd, and they killed 4 police officers in this shootout, I saw that, and for some reason, the first thing I thought of, I like to put everything into context, historical context, which I said at a mailbag day a couple of weeks ago. How do you ingest all this terrible stuff and keep smiling? And I said, and this is true, I like to look at every story of the day in the context of the century and the sweep of history, centuries and so on. And I went and I looked it up again yesterday. Kansas City Massacre and Pretty Boy Floyd. This is an FBI website in history. The sun rose on June 17th, 1933, just like any other spring day in America's heartland. This is the FBI trying to write prose. But outside of a massive train station in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's the Union Station there, and it's a beautiful, limestone train station. It looks like a slightly smaller version of Union Station in Washington, D.C., which would make sense. But in any case, the Kansas City Massacre involved an attempt by Charles Arthur Pretty Boy Floyd and Vernon Miller and Adam Ricchetti to free their friend, Frank Nash, he was a federal prisoner, and they wanted to break out their gangster buddy. And these guys showed up at the train station, and they gunned down 4 police officers, and they tried to break out, Pretty Boy Floyd, the age of gangsters. Anyway, I thought of that when I saw that it was in front of Union Station yesterday, because I was aware of this growing up in Chicago, and then some more reasons. I kind of tracked gangster stuff from the old days when I was a kid, as a hobbyist, and when I saw this attack yesterday, I wanted to know immediately, of course, what were they yelling Allahu Akbar? Was there one person or more than one person? Was it locals in the middle of a drug deal that just started shooting each other, which is where most mass shootings in the United States happen? They're gangsters in urban areas who shoot up parties and shoot up drug deals. And that's where a mass shooting is, where at least 4 people are shot. That's a mass shooting. And the vast majority of mass shootings are urban mass shootings with people who are involved in drugs and, gangsters. And there's a racial component to it that is enormous that we're not allowed to talk about because, why would we talk about it? Then we might do something about it. And in Kansas City yesterday during the Chiefs parade, these punks who have not been identified by name yet because they haven't yet been charged, but 3 have been arrested and guns recovered. A radio disc jockey woman was murdered by these animals. Her name was Lisa Lopez. She had 2 children, and she was a local DJ and very well known, and everybody loved her. And in addition to murdering Lisa Lopez, they shot an additional 21 people, including 9 children. And a number of people, maybe as many as 8, are in critical condition because these 3 punks decided to open fire at the Chiefs' celebration of their Super Bowl win. And so we got that going for us. So let me go to some audio since we're on the radio here, and Kansas City Chiefs parade shooting, suspects questioned, and the more than 20 injured, and the numbers kept going up. First it was don't know how many, then 10, then 11, and now we're at 1 killed plus 21 additional people shot, including 9 children. 3 young males of color arrested, and that's not very unusual, I'm sorry to say, tragically. But let's go to what it sounded like at the Chiefs victory parade yesterday. That's the gunfire in the background. And people start screaming and people start running.
Guys. Something's going on. Something's going on, guys.
And they got, families with kids, fathers with kids, mothers with kids, all of this. A man who was there with his wife, a man named Paul Contreras, was there at the parade, and he saw one of the gunmen with gun in hand opening fire. And he did what brave American men do. Paul Contreras attacked the gunman and tackled him.
Like I said, there was no hesitation. It was just that split-second reaction. I went to go tackle him. That other gentleman helped. We both helped each other, and I just feel we did what was the right thing. When we did what we did, it was just like, we didn't think about it, It was just saving other maybe lives. He's a normal guy, and look, you don't know how you're going to respond. You know, who knows what sort of frame of mind, where your mind's going to be when something like that happens right next to you. But Paul Contreras stepped up, and another man, and there's video of this, and Paul Contreras there with his wife saying, I don't know, it was just, I just reacted, and I attacked, and thank God that he did, and he might honestly have saved lives. And that's a good thing. Let's take a break here, and I've got some audio for you that I want to share with you. Jack Brewer, a former NFL player, who spends time. He goes into prisons and meets with young African American men involved in violent crime, and he had a couple of choice things to say about all this morning. He was sad about it, but he had some important things to say. He told the truth. And as you know, nothing gets you in trouble like the truth. That's coming up. Also, I will update you, George Soros, the extremist, communist, plunderer, and Democrat Party oligarch, is buying up a radio network to corrupt the presidential election of 2024 for the communists, and that means the Democrat Party. I've got that coming up. Buying Odyssey, one of the largest radio networks in the United States of America. And before we get to that, let's get back to what I was talking about with Jack Brewer, former NFL player, talking about the Kansas City violence, and where is it we get these 3 young males who just go shoot 22 people and murder this woman at a parade for a football team. What is up with that? And Jack Brewer, again, he goes into prisons and works with kids involved in violent crime, and there's a race dimension. He's African-American, former NFL player.
I'm in a unique position where I walk into prisons every week, and I literally have hundreds of men who have pulled the trigger and committed gun violence. So I get a chance to understand and know what's going deeply on inside their heads. And I have to tell you, man, this is just showing you how much we're perpetuating sin in this nation. At the root cause of this is fatherlessness, man. Over 82% of these mass shooters end up being fatherless kids when you look up and see the research and data.
Fatherlessness, that is, we all know that. We've all known this to be true for decades, for generations. But the Democrat Party demolished the black family on purpose. They think it serves the interests of the party of slavery, and it works for them. Jack Brewer.
We have a deep issue where if you don't have a fear of God inside of you and you're willing to pull a trigger and kill however many people as around that you have, there's a big issue with that, man.
You know, the Democrats, Gloria Steinem, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. They've been anti-nuclear family. They're anti-man. They're anti-family. They're anti-God. And 82% fatherless in prisons for violent crimes. Jack Brewer.
In this nation, I feel like we have to start considering the death penalty for these mass shooters, man, because you're just taking people's lives. You're killing kids and babies.
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm a fan of the death penalty only in extraordinary circumstances, but there are a lot of extraordinary circumstances, and you need to make examples and put the electric chair on cable TV, maybe pay-per-view. All the right people will pay for it. Jack Brewer talking about Kansas City, but let's not forget the other Democrat-run cities.
We're talking about this mass shooting, obviously, because it's a serious issue, but just this weekend, you had 21 people shot in Chicago. You had a dozen people shot in Baltimore last week. And so you start looking at how often these things are happening across our nation, man. It's just a stain, man, and we're better than this as Americans. And I think we have to really sit back and for once look at root cause and stop trying to just look at everything from the surface. And let's get to the bottom of this problem, Lawrence, and let's get families back together, man. Let's get the word of God back in our schools, man.
Talking to Lawrence Jones. Yeah, the word of God, get a little God, a little faith, a little sense of responsibility. Maybe two-parent households having a male role model who's not a criminal in the house might help.